Pump up the volume on your parenting with Parent Pump Radio. Tune into something different that makes a difference. At Parent Pump Radio, instead of a ripple, we choose to create a splash. Get energized, get inspired, and get informed with how to parent in the new millennium. With your host and parent coach super guide, Jacqueline T.D. Wynn.
Hi, this is Jacqueline T.D. Wynn. Welcome to Parent Pump Radio. Our show is all about dynamic family leadership, becoming financially free, and leaving a profound legacy for our children. This year, we've added family financial freedom as a major topic. We want to help families learn, act, and implement strategies to become financially free with topics ranging from debt elimination, student loans, credit, cash flow, investment, to money mindset and financial literacy. Be sure to get my new book called True Legacy Wealth, Creating Generational Wealth Through Real Estate Investing, and my previous book, Amazing Itty Bitty Book on Family Leadership. The links are in the show notes, or you can go to Amazon and Google my name, Jacqueline Wynn. If you're looking for a speaker for your organization or event, please contact me at info@integrativeminds.com to schedule a meeting time. Our show is available on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, YouTube, and syndicated on rethinkradio.org, oneideaaway.com, and Armed Radio. Okay, our guest today is a successful businessman, investor, and attorney specializing in tax, business, real estate, and estate planning. In his early days, he was also a K-9 officer. He has a genuine love and passion for creating long-term relationships with his clients to educate them and really help them create a multi-generational wealth for their family and financial freedom. He is also my co-author on our book, True Legacy Wealth, Creating Generational Wealth Through Real Estate Investing. Please help me welcome Maurice Kempner. Hi, Maurice.
Hi, Jackie. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you out there in Texas?
That's good. It's all good.
I love this episode today because we're going to be talking about equity stripping. But I think before we really talk about what equity stripping is, let's talk about some mindset that I think the general average American thinks. I think that when it comes to mortgage and home loans and what their home, I think most people think, let's get a 30-year mortgage loan. I want to get the lowest interest rate, and I want to pay it off as in that 30 years so that I can live rent-free. But the wealthy have different mindset because I see them constantly borrowing money and getting more real estate loans. What's your thought on the two mindset?
Well, I was raised in a wealthy family. I lived with my grandparents for a good portion of my childhood. They had a big farm. I was around my grandmother's aunts and uncles and other people who taught me about money growing up, and they have a different philosophy about money in general than working class people do. And these things are no secrets. All the kids I knew that were similar to me that grew up on these kind of big farming and business operations, their parents all told them the same thing. Equity is like cash. It's like putting cash in your mattress and letting it sit there. It loses value just like cash does. So whenever you have equity or cash and it's not earning anything, your family is losing wealth over time because of inflation. That's what they told me. As far as a regular mortgage, there are situations where that might be the best thing for somebody. But in most cases, depending on the market you're in and how your real estate goes up in value, it's usually better to do other things where you can access that equity and then leverage it through other kinds of investments that are I think are secure, like other real estate, for example, and continue to build wealth on it.
Why is equity and cash a losing scenario? Give us like an example.
I remember watching a female financial expert, I won't mention her name, but she was telling some people, well, if you've got your kids a job, even when they were 14, 15 or whatever, working someplace, and you put the money they earned, you could even let them keep the money, but just put the amount they earned into an IRA. By the time, and they just continue to put that amount in the rest of their lives, the limit, by the time they turn 65, they could have $1 million. So I have if you want me to share the screen, I can show you. There's a little calculator here. If you go ahead and you do that, so let's say you put $1 million in there, like she said, here's the future amount. Let's say the rate of inflation was 3%. It's actually a little more than that. And let's say it was just from 15 to 65, what is that, 50 years?
50
40
years.
50 years. So we'll put in here 50 years, and then we calculate. So what that means is for all the people in the audience, they're like, oh my gosh, $1 million just from doing that? Well, if you'd have done that 50 years ago, if you'd have taken that advice 50 years ago and inflation had been 3% all this time, that money is only worth, in today's buying power, $228,000. I don't think that's sufficient to retire on, but some people make it on that. There's an example. If you save now, it's not going to be worth $1 million later. In fact, after you adjust for inflation, this number here, this 228,000, is probably similar to the amount of money that would have been put in over all those years.
For all who are just listening, Maurice pulled up something called reverse inflation calculator. So you can just Google that.
Yeah, this is just one I found online.
So that $1 million in today's 50 years later is actually only worth $228,000. And you're right, Maurice, that's probably about how much.
Yeah, depending on what happens. So if we make the assumption, so inflation's been around 3.22% a year on average for some time. That's the official rate. Unofficially, it's probably a lot higher than that. But let's just assume that for the next 50 years, and there you go. But who knows what inflation really will be.
Let's talk about then how real estate works, because obviously that's where we say the sweet spot is.
Right. So real estate has a tendency to go up in value with inflation. Even if it just keeps pace with inflation, you're not losing your money. And if you've leveraged your real estate, you're making a lot more than inflation. So, for example, let's say you had $100,000 and you could buy a rental house for $100,000, which a lot of the ones we work with people on are around that range. Or you could put $25,000 down on 4 rental properties. Well, if the rate of inflation was 3% and the average increase in the market was just the rate of inflation, when that house, it would go up a value of $3,000 a year at 3% inflation approximately. So that means if you bought the house, paid cash for it, you'd make $3,000 in appreciation. If you put $25,000 down on 4 houses, though, you'd make $12,000 because you bought 4 houses and they each appreciate $3,000. And $12,000 is more by $8,000 than the rate of inflation would be. So in the one hand, you pay cash, your rate of inflation is going to give you, you're just going to keep the value of your realty by it going up 3%. Use a little leverage and you're going to beat the rate of inflation by a lot.
That's where we talk about leveraging your equity, and that hanging on to is really a losing scenario.
Well, this is one of the reasons why equity costs you money, because if you have the opportunity to buy 4 houses and get $12,000 in appreciation versus $3,000, and you don't do it because you're just keeping your equity, not only is the equity losing value, it's lost $3,000 of its value. So let's make this clear. Even though the house went up $3,000 in value, it's not because of the equity. If you bought that house and had a $100,000 loan on it and no equity, you still would have made $3,000 in appreciation. So the actual equity in the house would have lost $3,000 in value. The reason you made $3,000 is because you own this real estate. It's not the equity making you money. Doesn't matter whether your house has equity in it or not. It's going to go up in value however it does. And the equity you have will be worth less and less every year.
You have a really great example. I remember you telling me one time, like same house, 2 owners on the one block. One person leveraged and the other one doesn't.
Yeah, so if you had a house and it was worth $500,000 and I had a house and it was worth $500,000 and I paid cash for my house, and you had a $500,000 mortgage on your house, and let's say 10 years from now the houses were worth $1 million just because of the market and inflation, I will make $500,000 on my house due to appreciation, and you will make $500,000 on your house also. Doesn't matter what our loans on the property were.
So what the person that has the loan, how is that benefiting him?
Well, so that $500,000 in 10 years at 3%, that $500,000 is worth about 30% less than it was 10 years ago. So if you paid cash for your house, you would have lost 30% of the buying power of your equity during that 10-year period of time and made $500,000. If I put my $500,000 in other real estate investments and had a $500,000 loan, I would have made the $500,000, not lost any money to inflation, and I would have made an appreciation gain on all my other real estate as well.
Right. Let's get right into it. What is equity stripping, and how do you use it as an asset protection?
So as an attorney, that's